Hey guys, today's story is about a DM that had a homebrew dragonborn bad guy that was effectively an anime protagonist. Hello there! This is my first post, so I hope that I do this right. I'm playing a druid in a 5e game, and the game is heavily homebrewed, with new races, classes, feats, and etc. Everything was going more or less okay up until level 5, when the DM started getting frustrated with me for not being very active with spells, or trying to find creative solutions to problems. The issue that I tried to present to them was that there was no need to. One of the players had a special ability that started as a joke. They were playing as a talking griffin paladin whose feathers and fur were so fluffy, people could go into the fluff dimension. And it became an actual power where she basically was a living bag of holding with an air supply. And everything inside of the bag of holding still counted as being on the same plane. So the standard solution to most problems was the bard/warlock casts invisibility on the griffin paladin, and then everyone piles into the fluff dimension, and she simply flies past the obstacle or threat. An example of this was during a Drake siege on a town, where we had to reach a flying castle that was releasing an, apparently, endless amount of drakes. I used Wild Shape to become a raven, and began flying around the town, mimicking the voices of the party to lure the drakes away, so that the party could try to reach the castle. The bard and the DM then proceeded to get annoyed with me for holding up the game, and we more or less just moved on from there with a "You all eventually pile into the invisible griffin taxi clown car and fly to the castle." The DM also frequently alters spells' functions, sometimes without warning, and would occasionally just give a magic item that gave people a spell that I had to someone else. For example, I took Augury as a prepared spell at one point, only for the paladin to say, "Oh, well, I have a magic item that lets me cast that." They also altered Augury so that if two people asked about the same topic, the answer would be personalized. Like if I asked, would it be a good or bad idea for us to investigate these ruins? I could get a good answer, and then the paladin could ask the exact same question with their magic item and get a bad answer. I saw this as sort of rendering any information gleaned from the spell as moot. But the peak of it all was during our first boss fight against a major villain. We had infiltrated a dragon cult at their own fortress, and the very next endgame day, the half-dragon in charge arrived and called everyone to the main courtyard. He was aware that someone had infiltrated his castle. We managed to pin the blame on a group of grunts, but as we were preparing to leave, the half-dragon asked for our names, and seeing as our group was semi-well known to the cult at that point, I made the mistake of having my druid lie. "Roll for deception." I did, and I rolled surprisingly well. I got a 17, but it didn't matter, as the half-dragon nat 20'd his insight. He knew we were lying, and we immediately went into initiative. So, obviously, having no clue that the dragon's week-long vacation would end literally the next day after we arrived, I prepared most of my spells for sneaking around the fort. But with combat starting, the dragon got pretty high initiative. He struck the rogue and used Smite, as this half-dragon had paladin levels. The fight went on for a bit, with our paladin, who we had hidden, arrived around round 3. And as the half-dragon was in his lair, he got a lair action that allowed him to summon 1d4 skeletons every round. And we learned when the paladin threw his own first smite that this half-dragon also had his own special homebrew feat. In short, any divine-based attack now has a 50% mischance. Period. No getting around it. The DM included the paladin smites as a divine-based attack, So, this meant that if the paladin hit with a natural 20, and then declared that he used a smite, the DM would have him flip a coin to determine whether or not he missed. And to add to this, because if he was declaring he was using smite and he missed, the smite was still using up a spell slot. In addition to this, the half-dragon has advantage on all saving throws against divine spells. And even more, the half-dragon can add his proficiency modifier to any save that he isn't proficient with, and doubling his proficiency mod with any save that he is proficient with against divine spells. The party consisted of myself as a druid, an arcane trickster rogue, a paladin, a bard/warlock, who, despite their lore being that they literally gained their spells from a goddess, didn't count as a divine caster, a storm sorcerer, and an entirely forgettable cleric that used Call Lightning and zapped at him every round for the entire combat. I ran the math after the combat on this half-dragon paladin saves. The DM told me that his stats, while drunkenly rambling about how we didn't like the fight, he had a plus 14 on his lowest saving throw, with advantage, against any spell that I could throw at him. I'm a level 5 druid. So I cast Spike Growth to at least slow down and destroy the incessantly spawning skeletons. But the DM started having them just spawn right at the edge of the Spike Growth, so that they didn't take damage. And the half-dragon polymorphed into a full adult dragon, and just flew out of the Spike Growth. So, after the half-dragon in his polymorphed dragon form picked up the rogue and bludgeoned me with him, using a smite to damage us both and instantly KOing the rogue, I just resorted to heal-botting. We did eventually win because the Bardlock got like 7 critical hits with their College of Swords fancy strikes. The DM, after the session, proceeded to criticize me for not trying to do anything about the dragon. And, to quote him, "You didn't even try to attack him." But do remember that this half-dragon paladin with the super anti-divine feat had a 95% chance of saving against any saving throw spell that I threw at him, in addition to his legendary resistance. I was also hit with a, "You don't think strategically. You could have hidden behind the walls and such, like the bard did. You were at low health the whole time." While, yes, the bard did hide behind a wall, the half-dragon's acid breath apparently melted straight through it when he finally got annoyed with the bard's hit-and-run tactics. And to add to this, the half-dragon also just smashed straight through a second wall when the bard found a new hiding spot. If the fight was too hard, you guys should have ran. Note that this half-dragon polymorphed into his true dragon form, while maintaining his ability to use all of his class features, as he could still use smite and everything else. Also the fact that he could fly faster than we could run. This half-dragon, shapeshifting, but not actually a shapeshifter, because then my Moonbeam spell wouldn't have been able to force him back to half-dragon form, and we can't have that. Paladin had close to 200 health, legendary resistances, an infinitely spawning army of skeletons every round, and could apparently smite 2 people with 1 attack by picking up one and smacking the other with them. The DM was very frustrated that we didn't have fun with this fight. "I wanted you guys to feel like heroes. Dragon fights are like quizzes for everything that you've learned in the game so far." Well guys, quite frankly, this DM is not good. He doesn't seem to know how to really balance his creatures at all, if he even really cares enough to try to balance them, as well as just being antagonistic towards at least one of his players. I really kind of feel like this particular DM has watched a little bit too much anime, because this frickin' monster had what was effectively anime protagonist plot armor. The sheer fact that the players actually managed to win here is nothing short of a miracle, and I wouldn't be surprised if we found out that the Bardlock actually fudged his dice rolls a little bit. But yeah, this is a pretty crappy DM. and I would really suggest to the OP to just find a new DM end game. But yeah, that's the end of this one. Hope you guys enjoyed, and as always, have a good one.